Good morning, good morning. You know, today is Monday, December the 19th. And today is an important day simply because I want to basically break down the real meaning of Space Jam and how it has so many, explanations behind that simple movie. Now, everybody knows the original Space Jam with Michael Jordan and, the aliens that came out of space. And of course, the aliens, you know, they basically came down, Warner Brothers, Looney Tunes. And what happened was they they bet the Looney Tunes, right? So they bet them that they could beat them. And if they beat them at their own game or some type of bet, then in fact they would be able to take over and control the Looney Tunes, right? And so the aliens were small, so you know they were laughing, the Looney Tunes were laughing, and of course they took on that bet. But what they didn't know was their special abilities. And their special abilities was basically they're able to take special powers from, their opponents or who they want to use so that they can grow into, a very strong monster with talent. So they're able to extract talents from, you know, anybody that, they sort of touched. So in this case, they used the basketball, right? And so the basketball that they used was basically to extract powers from the basketball players. And they stole from Charles Barkley, Muggsy Bogues. They stole from, Sean Kemp and basically Patrick Ewing and of course, etc. Right? So they took from these quality NBA players and they took their powers. And we all know what happened. They couldn't play and they didn't have their talent. So no matter what they did, they weren't able to regain their skill until obviously the end of the movie. But, you know, I want to dig deeper into the spiritual side of things. And I want people to understand that this is a very high level spirituality, that I'm about to expose because not too many people know what I'm about to say about that particular movie. And you see, we all notice what happened with Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan retired, and of course, they weren't able to steal Michael Jordan's power because he wasn't playing in the NBA, right? And so the Looney Tunes were able to then get Michael Jordan. And of course, Michael Jordan saved the day because, you know, he was able to get the team together and basically win the game. And we all know the history of the Looney Tunes. That's just the basic side of things. But I want to explain the real meaning of it. Now, this is the real meaning of the movie Looney Tunes. You see, those aliens came from what? Moron Mountain. That's what they said. But the magic that they were using is maroon magic. And so that is a maroon magic, form of magic. Now, that's a high level of magic that they practice to extract abilities from people so that they use that, so that they're able to use their skills, their talents, and whatever. And they're also able to extract these abilities through, objects, certain things. Now, a lot of people are not aware of this magic, but that takes place regularly. You see, if you guys don't know who the Maroons are, right? They say the Maroons are the original black people, right? So, Moron Mountain is Maroon Mountain. You see what I'm saying? The Moors, the Maroons, that kind of magic where they're able to extract is dark art magic. Dark arts magic is that same particular magic. And so God revealed to me that I should explain the true meaning behind the Space Jam movie, where they think that these aliens came out of space, but really it's pointing at the Maroons, right? With the dark arts of magic, where people want to extract abilities from people that are, highly gifted from God, to be able to use their ability and render them useless. That means they're not able to do anything. If they try to do anything, it will never come about. You see what I mean? It will never come about. So they will never be able to become successful at anything that they do because their skills and abilities extracted and is being used by another. And that's the form of dark magic that is taking place nowadays on planet Earth. And it has been for decades, you know, from the beginning of time. But people are not seeing it because it's being portrayed in movies, even children's movie, because Space Jam, right, grossly high. And I'm pretty sure, right, so many people around the world, so many children around the world watch this movie, and that they're intrigued by the fact that it was portrayed in a sense where aliens came from Moron Mountain outer space to basically play one final basketball game against the greatest player of all time, which is Michael Jordan. Now, the bowls, right, is a representation of the same bowl that was worshipped in Egypt. Remember Moses going into the mountains, Mount Sinai, right? And he went there for 40 days to get the 10 commandments from God. And once he came down with the 10 commandments, right, there was a division between the Israelites and the people. And I want people to understand, because of that division, right, they gathered all their gold together. And what did they do? They built a golden calf, a golden bowl. And so this bull was who they were worshiping. And that is a representation of the symbol of Michael Jordan, because he's a bull. And so, you see, that was the highest level of idol worship. And so that bull was able to then conquer, right? Conquer the aliens. And so that is a form of dark, right? Deep, dark Egyptian magic. And I want people to really pay attention and understand what is truly going on. That, the elites, the darkness of darks, they use certain things because everything that they do, they have to what? Say it, they have to explain it, and they have to portray it. So their explanation can be in many forms. They don't have to say it straight up, but they can portray it in movies, in songs, in games, in cartoons. Basically, they have many, many ways, many platforms, many expressions to be able to release their version of the truth, as long as they have explained what they're trying to do in a way where it could sort of be understood, you know, then therefore they're able to then, you know, get away with what they have done because they have already explained it. And this is what contract that they have with the Most High. Meaning, I told you, if you are basically worshiping God the right way, Yahweh's way, then God develops a closer relationship and it makes more sense and it's more simplified. The journey is tough, but the relationship is simple and very powerful. But if you worship, you know, the other side of God, which is, you know, going through the lane where you can do whatever you want, right? Then you must explain everything that you are doing, right? In plain sight, but it doesn't have to fully make sense, right? It won't make sense to those who are spiritually, you know, on a lower level. That's what I mean. Those who are on a lower level of spirituality, it won't make sense. But those who are on a higher level of spirituality, it will make sense. Anything that they are gathering, it's already under the sun, has already taken place. And I want people to understand that the things that they are watching, what does it really represent? What is the symbolization? How did they come up with this type of knowledge? There's nothing new under the sun. That means this type of magic that I explained, the maroon dark magic, is available to those who, you know, are indulging in it. And so they used this magic back in the days, and they still continue to practice this dark magic today, meaning that they're able to extract, you know, abilities of people and then use the abilities as if it's their own, but really it is not their own. So protecting yourself is being spiritually awakened, spiritually aware. Because guess what? There are many cases where you would do things and it will never, ever, you know, come to anything. But yet before, right? Sometimes, you know, there's so many stories where some people meet people and before they were great, they did everything good, you know, they're able to overcome so many situations. But then, you know, the extraction of just meeting this particular individual or people, right, seem to stop them from progressing. And they always wonder why. Because they're not spiritually, you know, up there. So it's very difficult to understand certain things that don't make sense. Everything must take place spiritually before it takes place physically. And I am saying that God is telling me to explain through certain ways to people the dark arts of the maroon people. Because guess what? Black magic is something that is the highest level of magic, where evil forces use these kinds of ways to destroy God's people simply because it's very cunning and very deceitful And if you're not aware or in tune, you will not recognize this type of evil that is dwelling upon the planet. I want people to understand that it is essential to pray on a daily basis. It is nowadays essential to also fast simply because you want to empower yourself. For God says, we are not battling up against flesh and blood. You see, it was so funny how when Moses came and Moses was sent by Yahweh, and Aaron then was sent to Moses to also be, on his team. And they went to the Pharaoh. And guess what? When they laid down the rod, because they said, let my people go, for the God of the Israelites have commanded me to come and let you know that you must let the Israelites go. And what did Pharaoh do? Laugh. His servants also laughed. His magicians and everyone laughed. And so what happened? When the rod turned into a snake, a king cobra snake, they said, well, my God can also do the same. And they laid out the rod, and two rods turned into snakes. 2 verses 1. That means there's going to be double the evil people versus the good. And so what happened is they then fought. The rods all turned into snakes. But we know that Moses' snake prevailed. So understand where that bowl came from. Notice that the bowl, right, was created in times where they already left Egypt, where God already parted the Red Sea. So that is symbolizing that through the blessings of God, they still went back to the bowl. So the bowl to them is a very, very, very significant figure, but cannot conquer the power of God. So for Moses to say, those who worship God come on one side, come on my side, and those who worship the bull stay on that side. That is a symbolization of, who's greater. And it's a high level of idol worship that people need to be aware of and spiritually inclined, because you need spiritual discernment in these days. And I tell you, everything that is taking place has to be brought to you mainstream. So in order for it to be carried along, it has to be what? Put out in masses form. You see what I mean? Nobody realized that kind of movie, Space Jam, had the meaning behind that, you know? But there is meaning, and that form of magic does exist by the Maroon tribe, dark arts of dark magic that exist, where they extract your abilities and they use your abilities, your gifts, your blessings as their own. And then you're rendered to not being able to do anything. So, really, the next time, if you watch Space Jam, please pay attention and recognize all of those things are coming from certain cultures that has been around for decades upon decades, generations upon generations. See what I mean? Because you know that the bull, right, is highly, highly worshipped here. And so they consider it as great as God. But it is not God. Remember, God created everything, but they worship it as if it is like God. So just stay aware spiritually. Physically, things can be played to you, but the meaning, what is true, must be spiritual. So, what I'm saying is, they have to tell you the truth spiritually, but they don't have to tell you the truth physically, because physically is different from spiritually, and spiritually is what matters in the first place. So, if they can explain to you where it doesn't make sense physically, but it does make sense spiritually, then they know that if you're spiritually awakened, you'll be able to actually understand what is being said to you or what is being shown to you, right, of their plans. But they just play it physically because guess what? They need people, right? So many people they're aware that are sleeping, that their level of intellect is lower in the spiritual realm. So they see physical things, but they're not awakened spiritually, so that they're not able to discern this kind of situation in a spiritual way because they're not awakened. So, meaning they can explain to you, right? Physically, doesn't have to make sense because the flesh can be lied to. But the spirit cannot be lied to because we come from spiritual, because it is God, right? We have a small God in us. That is what our soul is, directly from God. You can't lie to God. Remember that. But you can lie to the flesh because the flesh is only temporary. And the flesh is not as powerful as the spirit. It's only if we dim our spirituality, then we only accept the flesh as powerful. But the flesh is not as powerful, nowhere near the spiritual. But in the spirit, they have to tell you the truth because the spirit, right, is coming directly from God and you can't lie to God. That's the rules. But they can explain it to you, right, in a meaning of the flesh, but they don't have to explain it in the exact way. However, that scenario of explanation is what packaged in the physical. It equals to the true explanation in the spiritual. So that means you have to have spiritual discernment, spiritual intellect, spiritual growth. To what? To be able to discern what is being shown to you. Because what you see with your physical eye, what you understand with your, or what's it called, mental mind, is totally different from your spiritual mind and your spiritual eye. Right? So if they could get your vibrations to be on a lower pattern, then you're not able to understand what is being shown to you. You will foresee it as a normal kind of way. Just remember, you have eyes, but you cannot see. You have ears, but you cannot hear. Right? What that is showing, what that is explaining is you can hear physically, you can see spirit physically, but you cannot see spiritually and you cannot hear spiritually until you're closer to God, until your worship grows, until you are still, be still in the presence of God and you will hear God. Because when you are still in the presence of God, then your spiritual mind your spiritual ears, your spiritual eyes, your spiritual, you know, body is activated. Hmm? Then it's activated for you to recognize and understand, because it's a different level of thoughts when you are still in the presence of God. Understand that. You see, it was the best explanation when Jesus was in the boat and the disciples, they were panicking, and Jesus woke up. And as soon as he woke up, he did not care about the problems that was taking place physically. He knew this had to be corrected in the spirit. And he said, you. I rebuke you, devil, and be still. Peace, be still. See what I mean? He fixed the problem spiritually, and then boom, everything was corrected physically. So be aware of the dark magics that they put in movies, especially Space Jam. As innocent as it is, that's a high level of dark magic in there, and it's maroon magic, maroon dark arts that have been practiced for decades. And also the bowl, the worship of the golden bowl. That's a representation of, you know, the symbol of Michael Jordan, because he was representing Chicago Bulls, right? Symbol of the bull. That is the spiritual meaning. Like I said, it won't make sense to those who are not spiritually, high, but it will make every bit of sense to those who are. Physically, it seems like, oh, Mara Mountain, they came out of space, and they came to bet and do all of those things. But it's dark arts, maroon magic. Notice that they bet Michael Jordan to, if he lost, he would be working on, Maroon Mountain with all the days of his life as a slave, as a chain. That magic is like that. And then they will take his powers and everything. And as hard as he works, it will never amount to anything. That is the symptoms of that dark arts being practiced upon people. So be aware. Once you used to be able to do so many things, there was great things happening. Increase your spiritual presence. Never give up. Stay motivated, stay focused, and be aware spiritually, because this practice of dark arts take place on a daily basis. People use this to today. That's why certain success comes like that, and you don't understand how that, became that situation or that scenario, or groups of people or this individual became very successful out of nowhere, or they have these abilities out of nowhere. It's the practice of dark black arts, maroon magic. And I'm telling you, this is something that exists, and they play it plain sight in movies, so that anybody that watches these kind of movies, right, you're very much aware. So because if you're very much aware of it and you can discern it spiritually, then it doesn't matter. It's already explained to you. So whatever you're intaking, it's already explained to you, meaning that spiritually, if you are in tune with it, right? What I'm trying to say is, whatever you watch, if is representing something spiritually, which everything is, then you could only watch it if you are spiritually powerful enough to discern it. If not, then you still have the same rules and regulations, meaning once you have watched it, you are supposed to be able to explain it spiritually and discern so that you can protect yourself. But if you cannot understand it and the real meaning behind it spiritually and you watch it, you are still in agreements of it, meaning that if it's dark arts, it could be practiced upon you and it will work if you don't understand it spiritually. So, best practice, best thing you can do is what? Pray, fast, right? Worship God on a daily basis so that God can protect you with the fire of the Holy Spirit, right? And rebuke any spells, any tricks of evil, because the dark kingdom is working 24 hours, 7 days a week. They don't sleep, they don't eat. You know what I mean? They're not flesh and blood, but the spiritual forces of dark, evil, hidden world, dark kingdom. And so they are coming up with many ways to try to what? Deceive the people. As you know, the devil is what? The master when it comes to deception, of creation, of false reality. So he's creating a false reality, meaning that he can manifest false physical things. It will only appear to be real to you and the people that he has under control. But people are not going to recognize that. But if you are spiritually inclined, spiritually in tune, spiritually awakened, you are able to then discern and say, no, that doesn't make sense. Or no wonder this is happening because this is taking place. I told you, physically, it must be what? Exposed. But the physical reality of explanation is not the true one. You see what I mean? It's like this. Words can be written, but for you to be able to see, right? The words on a package could be written, but sometimes those high level words or words that contain so much toxins and poisons are written, but they're very small. So if you don't have a magnifying glass, you're not able to discern those words. You're not able to then read what those words mean. And even when you're reading, sometimes the type of English or the type of language that is written is out of your vocabulary because they know most people are not gonna look at those words with a magnifying glass. That's one layer of protection for them. How many people are gonna take a magnifying glass and read that? And then when you read it, how many people then is going to go check out what those words mean and how those words those words mean and how those words can affect what they're eating because it's an ingredient that could mean poison, but they're not going to write poison. They're going to write it in a very high level way where you be like, well, that sounds, very unique and intellectual. So it must be good. To most people or to the average person, they're not even going to go and go through the phases. They're never going to do that. But for those who are awakened, right, they're going to say, okay, what does this word mean? Oh, when you break it down, it means this, right? That's physical what? In physical way of breaking things down and finding out the physical truth. But in order for them to be able to do that, not many people are able to do that. They have to be spiritually awakened, because the passion and the drive and the will to be able to say, yo, let me truly find out what these words on the package mean, is something that you have to be spiritually awakened to do, because you need the drive, you need the passion to be able to find out the truth. That's why the truth will set you free, because so many explanation is being given in the physical, but it's not the real meaning. But yet at the same time, it is the real meaning, right? Because you don't have your spiritual magnifying glass. So you're not able to discern anything that is being given to you physically. Like I said, the flesh and the spirit is different. The flesh is on one side and the spirit is on the next side. The flesh does not have to tell you the truth, but the spirit does. You see what I mean? The spirit has to tell you the truth. That means when it manifests, it has to tell you the truth. That's why if you have the Holy Spirit within you, if you are closer to God, it must tell you the truth. That is why you see those demons that came out of that individual that was demon possessed on the island, the legions, right? Had to talk to God, had to explain to God, had to beg God. Because Jesus said, who are you? He said, we are legions, we are many demons in one. Just told everything, because they have to speak the truth. If you have the Holy Spirit, if you have the holy discernment, if you are really guided, anything that is in darkness will be exposed and come to light. But if you do not have spiritual discernment, if you are not spiritually awakened, you're not able to see these kinds of explanation. So your spiritual eye has to be polished. It has to be fed. You understand? With spiritual knowledge. Feed your spiritual body so that you can spiritually have great explanation. That is my talk for today. I thank you for listening, and I hope you understood what I said about the dark arts of maroon magic and the explanation behind the movie Space Jam. I know that movie played a long time ago, but it is still relevant today because it did so well in the box office and so many people watch it. And even as I am speaking, there's many people who are still watching that movie. But if you are not spiritually awakened to be able to explain what I just explained, please do not watch things. Just like if you don't know what those words on a label is saying, right? You're not too sure, do not eat the food, because you might not be aware of it, but it can overtake you over time and create bigger issues with your DNA than you ever known. Have a nice day. Bye now. Remember to like, comment, and share this movie, this video. Bye now.